Hello! How are you? I missed you. It has been a whole month since we last spoke, and that is because I was on tour. That is so incredible to say. I'm pinching myself every time I think about it. I toured the UK and Ireland for my book because we didn't get the chance to do that prior because of lockdown, and I moved countries and all that kind of stuff, so already feeling incredibly sentimental. It was so much fun. I am the luckiest girl in the world. I'll post more content about that soon if you're interested, but for now we haven't spoken about books in a while, so I thought what better way to indulge in the literary world than to speak about books for summer. I live in England, so it's not actually sunny right now, but it is midsummer, I promise. My take on this topic of summer reads will be less beach romancy reads and more so glittering, dazzling pieces of literary fiction and poetry and essays, so I hope that's okay. In no particular order, the first book that I have in this stack is OK Days by Jenny Mustard, and this usually has a really cool cover, but I take slipcovers off because I despise slipcovers. I kind of just like the plain branding of it, but it does have a really cool cover. This is a novel not about love itself, but it's about what love does to us as humans, the way that it changes us and shapes us and gets under our skin and makes us do crazy, silly things, but it doesn't matter because we're in love. If you know me, or at least watch my videos for a while, you know that I tend to despise / avoid completely the romance genre in general, but I don't consider this to be romance. I consider this to be character study, literary fiction character study. I loved reading this because A, it's set in London, and so I could relate to what was happening, and B, the days are just as mundane and domestic as they are glittering and magical. It's very much a look on ordinary life with ordinary people. We have an alternating perspective between the girl and the boy's narration styles, and so it's really interesting to have that kind of peek inside of both their minds. I definitely read this book at the right time in my life, as A, it's summer in London, and B, lots of complicated stuff in my love life right now. But this video is not about that. This video is about this book, and this book is amazing because it reminds me that humans are so simple but so complex, and loving is so simple and so complex, and we're all just trying to work the same stuff out in our own ways. I had the privilege of chairing the launch event for this book on its publication day, and I got to interview Jenny, and she is one of the most talented and humble girls I've ever met, so go support Jenny and go read this incredible book. At the same book launch that I just mentioned is this book here, and this is, again, it has a really cool cover, but I hate slipcovers. And this is The Sleepwatcher by Rowan Hosayo Butchanan, and it's a very pretty kind of blue. I like that. I also had the privilege of picking Rowan's mind as well about this new release of hers, and my god, she is a genius. She's one of the most captivating people. Again, she's so humble. This is the kind of book that I don't think I would have picked up of my own accord in a bookstore. So I'm so glad this was sent to me because I absolutely adored it. A young girl learns that she can lucid dream, astrally project, have out-of-body experiences in her sleep, whatever you'll call it. She accidentally notices / happens across her parents not being as functional and healthy as she thought they were, you know, because the narrator is a young girl, and she decides to use this time in her sleep-wake state to more or less spy on them. It's a really incredible glimpse on girlhood, on dysfunctional families, on coming of age, of youth, of the innocence but the guilt of it all. Young love, small towns, domestic violence, and healing. It blurs the lines between realism and surrealism, and it's a really intense read at times, but it's also dazzling and beautiful, and I'm so glad that I got to read this, so I recommend this very much. Now, it would not be a summary reads video if I did not mention Hello Sadness. This is the most pivotal summer read that I can think of. This was the first book that came to my mind. I've spoken about this book a lot. I mention this so much because it's one of my most favorite books in the whole entire world. So I'll briefly touch on this for you. The author wrote this when she was 17, and it's one of the best books I've ever read, so keep that in mind if you ever feel like you're doing well at something. It's set in one hot summer in the French Riviera, and it's glittering and it's dazzling, and it's a tale of families and young love, and quite similar to the last book, but less dark and gritty. This one's more so just about youth, a tale on youth, and you really feel like you're there. And because the author is so young herself and she wrote it She's got such this raw perspective, but also she's really wise for her age. The narrator's voice is incredible because it really is that astute, childish, yet profound kind of narration of just noticing the dazzling, glittering, sensational world around her, whilst also wallowing in self-pity as teenage girls do. So this is an incredible summer read. I can't recommend this book enough. Just to spice things up a little, this next book is a collection of poetry. And this is Blue Horses by Mary Oliver. Mary Oliver is one of my most favourite poets in the whole entire world. Her perspective on hope and humanness is just so, it's so real and it feels like home. It's incredible. I picked up this particular collection of hers at the start of summer in Paris and I could not wait to read it, so I walked to the park directly next to the bookstore and laid in a warm, sunny patch of grass and read the entire thing cover to cover 3 times over because I could not wait and because I loved it so much. This collection utilizes nature as a meditation on love and wonder and the fleeting nature of life, and it is so simple and gentle and full of hope. Mary Oliver's poetry, it feels like a hug in the best way possible because it's so human that, you know, it really kind of affirms that we're doing the right thing because we're just alive and that's the best thing we could possibly do. Most of the poetry that I usually opt for is quite dark and morbid, and so this is a really incredible breath of fresh air. I recommend this incredibly. Any of her poetry, I'm just using this book as an example. The next book I have spoken about, and the sun's coming out. Summer. I've spoken about it on my TikTok and Instagram before, but I don't know if I've spoken about it on my YouTube channel, so if I haven't, this is Mrs. S from K. Patrick. And I was sent an advance copy of this book months before it came out, and my god, the most excruciating experience is having to wait to talk about a book that you really incredibly love because it's not out yet. This is set in an elite English boarding school, which is a fun setting, I think, and an outsider come to take up the role of matron for the boarding school, and she has to grapple with this really intense otherness and learning this kind of distinguishing between class and privilege, somewhere that she did not come from because she came from across the world. It's a hostile environment for somebody that's never experienced it before, and so the matron is desperately looking for some sense of connection with this place, and so she forms this kind of attachment with the headmaster's wife. Her name is Mrs. S, and Mrs. S is the matron's polar opposite, and there's this really intense kind of unique love affair that forms between the two. It's all over the course of this white hot relentless summer as well, which is perfect for a summer read. It's a really incredible commentary on queer identity and different kinds of queer identity and how this affects some people and how it affects others less, because Mrs. S, you know, her being queer is much less of a thing as it is for the matron, and this gets in the matron's head a bit, thinking, why is this my identity and why isn't it hers? But I related to every single character in this book in some unique way, even the students running around, and I really appreciated the experience this gave me. So read this for a summer read. I swear it is very good. The next book is a collection of essays from Susan Sontag, and this particular collection is Against Interpretation, which I believe is her first ever collection, but consider this recommendation for the author and not just for this book, because I would read Susan Sontag's grocery lists. I've read snippets from Sontag's works for much of my life and always thought, wow, this is genius, this is incredible, but never actually thought to pick up a collection of essays from her because, you know, it is quite convoluted and I have to read this really quite slowly, but it's so worth it. The reason why I say this is a summer read is because I read it, I started reading it at the start of summer and it felt like the most fitting thing. I remember I was laying in a park, there was this body of water to my left, this giant willow tree to my right, and I was reading Susan Sontag, just laying there thinking, this is what it means to be human. And because all of these collections are meditations on different kinds of art and artists and what it all means, and it felt very fitting and wonderful, so I think this is a great summer read. Sontag was an essayist and a philosopher, and I'm pretty sure she published some novels, but I've not read any of her novels, I've just read her essays. She really passionately and intelligently dissects the works of other artists and creators and influencers of culture, and off the top of my head, some of the artists that she dissected was Godard and the philosophy of Sartre. I find her analysis of art and her analysis of the analysis of art to be revolutionary, and I remember when I was sat reading this, I felt my brain expand tenfold. So I can't recommend Susan Sontag enough. If Rachel Cusk has 100 fans, I am one of them. If Rachel Cusk has 1 fan, I am it. If Rachel Cusk has 0 fans, I am dead. This is Outline, and this was my 3rd book that I've read from Cusk, and whilst it wasn't my favourite, Second Place was my favourite, this feels the most fitting for summer. It's still very good. This is a book where not much happens, so we're not here for the plot, we're here for the vibes, because the plot itself is a writer goes to Athens to teach a writing course. That's really all there is, but the plot of the book is a novel in 10 conversations, and so she unfolds the plot via these conversations with these different characters. They discuss love, life, hopes, dreams, their fears, their anxieties, their traumas, the meaning of it all. The funny part about this book is it's so natural and so real, and it's set in this sweltering hot summer in Greece, but because it's so natural and real, a lot of the conversations were really frustrating to read. A lot of the characters were ultra unlikable because of how natural and real they were. You know, I kind of geared myself up to not like this book because towards the end of it I was thinking, oh god, everyone's so annoying in this book, we get it. But then I got to the end and closed the book and thought, I get it. I don't want to get it, but I get it. You know, as a writer and an avid talker myself who loves the backdrop of sweltering heat, which is entirely the premise of this book, I'm bound to get it as much as I didn't want to. Any Rachel Cusk is excellent, but this is particularly wonderful for summer, so there's that one. Hello, it's Dakota from Tomorrow here. I'm here to quickly jump in and gush about today's sponsor, Squarespace, but hear me out. If you're any kind of artist looking to take the next steps, you're going to want to stick around for this one. I've worked with Squarespace many times before, and I love Squarespace because it is a platform that makes creating and maintaining websites and online presences easy and simple and fun. Hello, creative passion projects turned professional. It's perfect for anything from blogs, hello independent writers, to online stores. Hello independent artists looking to sell your work. The fluid design engine system makes it impossibly easy for anyone and everyone to unlock their creativity. I'm currently in the midst of redesigning my own website, and if you know me at all, you know I am a meticulous perfectionist, much to my own detriment, but Squarespace makes this easy and simple and fun, and I'm in total control, and I love that. You can go to squarespace.com to start your free trial, and then when you're ready to launch your own website, you can go to squarespace.com/Dakota Warren to get 10% off your first website or domain. Thank you for listening to this little integration, and thank you Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I love Squarespace with my whole heart, so more books. Let's talk about more books. Another stunning collection of poetry that I want to recommend is this. It's Haruko/Love Poems from June Jordan. I won't lie, I read this collection mid-winter in a little log cabin in the Scottish countryside by a crackling fire with my best friend rugged up in blankets, which I filmed, by the way. If you're interested in watching, I guess I can link it in the description box. But I remember thinking as I was reading this is a summer book. I must reread this in summer. This is a collection about, you guessed it, love. And what is summer for if not reading dazzling love poems in all their glory and their realness and their humanness? Because you know the love poems that I like are not about glittering, sparkling love, you know, they're about the love that eats you inside. What is summer for if not reading poems like this on a pretty park bench somewhere by a pond with a beautiful tree in the sun? I found this particular collection to be quite scattered and ultra personal to the writer's life. You know, some things we just couldn't get because it's specific experiences of the writer, but I like that. You know, it's kind of like reading a journal and there's certain lines and certain bits that you think, oh, perfect. I completely relate and resonate with this, and it's almost more rewarding. It's very lyrical and I adored it, so here's another book for you. The next book I've spoken about so many times, and I will not stop speaking about this book. I refuse, because I love it so much. It's one of my most favorite contemporary works of literature that there is, and this is The Girls from Emma Cline, and this is the perfect summer read. It even says on the blurb, the book of the summer. Does it get much more relevant than that? This is set at the start of summer in the 60s, the violent end of the 60s, because you know how the end of the 60s was kind of this time of massive political unrest in Northern California specifically, and a young 14-year-old girl has this really mundane, simple life, but you know, she's looking for more. She's bored. She happens to see a group of girls in a park, and she's absolutely enthralled by their energy and their wildness and their restlessness and their dangerous energy, the way they dress, and so she follows them because she wants to be with them, and then she ends up more or less joining them. They take her to their ranch and they introduce her to their leader, a Charles Manson kind of spin-off. This is a spin-off of the Charles Manson story, the Charles Manson murders and the Charles Manson cult. Whilst their ranch is spooky and run down and separate from the rest of the world, it's a place where the protagonist finds she actually finally fits in and is having fun, and so she feels safe there. Little does she know it's like the least safe thing in the world. I don't need to explain the rest of the plot to you because it really is just a retelling of the Manson murders, but this is one of the most dazzling books I've ever read, and so perfect for summer because it is set in this sweltering hot summer full of violence and angst and coming of age in the most late 60s way possible. The prose is stunning. The way that Emma Cline sensorially writes is incredible. You really feel like you are there. It's one of my most favorite books in the whole entire world for good reason. It is a very risque topic, but I think that the way that the author tackled it unapologetically was the most genius way to tackle it, because you know, it really captures the innocence of these girls, but also the guilt of these girls and how maybe girlhood isn't as pure as we thought when we are conscious beings. It really has a lot to think about, so read this, it's brilliant. The next book is a collection of essays on writing from a writer, and even if you're not a writer, I really recommend this because it has just great kind of commentary on art and the creation of art and everything. And this is A Horse at Night on Writing from Amina Kane. I picked this book up on a total whim, I remember, because I read the author's fiction prior to that and I didn't mind it, and so I'm always interested to hear what a writer has to say on writing, because this is my favorite of her works ever. This is incredible. I was about to sum in my own words have what I love about this book, but the two reviews on the back are really good. So rather than try and steal them and pretend they're mine, I'm just going to read them to you. And the first is, Kane writes beautiful, precise sentences about what it means to wander through this luminous world. She does. The second is masterful, a manifesto and conversation all in one, intimate, insightful, and brilliant. It's true. I like Kane's writing style because I've seen some, I've had friends that have read this book and I think it's quite pretentious, but I think that it's delicate and important, but it's very accessible because the sentences are simple and quite concise and precise and to the point. Like all writers, Kane is absolutely obsessed with the art of writing, and in her essays she explores the solitude that comes with being a writer, because writing is a lonely art. This is my Multiverse of Madness as well, because we have all of the same influential, inspiring authors that we absolutely adore and devour all of their works, because Amina Kane mentions the author of this book, Cusk, as a massive inspiration, is for me as well. She also mentions Francoise Sigon because she is also a massive inspiration for me. She mentions another author that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and that is Elena Ferrante, and one of her books narrowly missed making it into this video just because I've been speaking for so long, but I love Elena Ferrante. Insightful, quick, punchy read, I recommend. The last two books I don't have physical copies of with me because they are in Melbourne, but the first book, you've definitely seen the movie, Call Me By Your Name. It is such an incredible book. The movie, great, wonderful, but the book, chef's kiss. Just in case you aren't familiar with it, it's about a queer love story that unfolds in the Italian Riviera over one short, brief summer, because it goes so fast like that, and it's beautiful, but it's complicated, and it glosses over the beauty of everything, but it also has some really gritty elements to it, such as age gaps and grooming and a young love versus obsession. It's an obsessive and absolutely reckless love story, but again, the prose is so sensorial that you feel like you are right there with them. You feel like you are smack bang on the Italian Riviera with these people on this beautiful orchard eating peaches and basking in the sun, and it's such an incredible book. I can't gush about it enough. The final book is a controversial book to recommend, and I didn't realize it was so controversial until I spoke about it one time and all the comments were saying, I hate that book. I really like it. I'm still gonna recommend it because I'm loyal to what I like. When I think of summery reads, this is one of the first books that comes to my mind because I read it in summer when I was 14 and it changed my life. I feel like it was one of the books that made me love reading again, because 14 is that weird, strange kind of pivotal age where you want to stay true to your old hobbies, but you suddenly have this pressure of being a loser, and reading all the time is not what the cool kids do. And so this book kind of reminded me to stay loyal to what I love because it brings me so much joy. This book is We Were Liars. If you've read this, you've definitely already got a strong opinion of this. It is YA fiction, so maybe I'm just sentimental because I don't read a lot of YA anymore. But this is an incredible book set in summer, no less, of... God, how do I even sum this? There are these privileged, well-off families that holiday together in this particular place, and they always go together, and then we're always alluding to this fact that something tragic and traumatizing has happened, and the protagonist is traumatized but she can't remember anything. They all go back afterwards, and it's about uncovering that mystery of what happened. And maybe I'm saying this because I was 14 and not as smart or aware as I am now, but this has one of the best plot twists I've ever read in a book. I did not know what to expect until it happened. Shocking. If you've read this book, all I'm going to say is, I know you sobbed at the dogs. And if you haven't read this book and you read this book, you're going to sob at the dogs. I used to reread this book periodically whenever I felt like I needed to cry. So let that convince you in itself. That's enough. I think that's enough. I've recommended a few, I didn't count, but if you read them, I hope you love them. And thank you for watching this video as per usual. It was nice to talk about books again. I'm going to be a lot more active on YouTube the next few months because I've got a lot of ideas, but because I was on tour and that was taking 100% of my mental and physical energy, I couldn't delve into my ideas. So let's hang out a bit more coming up. Happy summer and enjoy the rest of your day, and I love you so much. Thank you for watching. I love you. Bye.